Welcome back to another video on the channel. So today I'm going to be giving my 2022 ATP top 10 rankings predictions. A very difficult thing to do, but I thought it would be a fun video with the returns of Rafa Nadal and Dominic Thiem potentially getting back inside the top 10. Roger Federer having another long injury layoff. Will Andy Murray surge back up the rankings? Many unanswered questions. Can't wait to find out in 2022. But today I'm going to be giving my predictions on how I think 2022 will finish in terms of the ATP top 10. Kicking things off with a Brit, and it's Cam Norrie, who enjoyed a fantastic 2021, reaching 6 ATP finals, becoming British number one, over 50 wins on the ATP tour, which is a fantastic number for Cam. And across those 6 finals, 2 of them came on clay court, 2 on hard and 1 on grass, which just shows he's got that variety in all different surfaces now. Won his maiden Masters title in Indian Wells, which was fully deserved. To cap off what was a fantastic year with the Masters title was brilliant for Norrie. And I think he's just gone from strength to strength. He's a player that spoke about, he thinks he's approaching his peak years at 27, 28. He wants to get number one in the sport, and although many will think that's out of reach, Cam Norrie certainly doesn't. He believes in his own ability. He believes he can beat anybody. He's consistent. He's improving all the time. Brilliant on all 3 surfaces. And I think Norrie's a player that will continue to rise up the rankings. Now he's back inside the top 20 for the first time. I think, Norrie's going to get better draws at Grand Slams. He's had very unfavourable Grand Slam draws in the past due to his ranking. Hopefully now he's inside the top 20, he will get a little bit better draws at Grand Slams, and that could see him reach quarterfinals and semi-finals, which would improve his ranking. But 2021 was a career best year for Cam Norrie, and certainly something to build on. And I'm excited to see how he does next year. So moving on to number 9, one of my favourite players in the tour, and I can't wait to see him back. Just hope he's fully recovered after that broken wrist early this year. I think in 2019, Dominic Thiem played some of the best tennis that I've ever seen. His aggression, his conviction, his backhand, his forehand, the serve. His all-round game was just unbelievable. He had an incredible mindset. I think he firmly believed at that time he was number one in the world. He could beat any player in the world on any surface. And, for him to win that US Open was fully deserving. Produced an epic comeback from 2 sets to love down against Alexander Zverev in the final. And I think, it's a massive shame that Dominic Thiem didn't get an opportunity to build on that. Last year could have been such a special year for Dominic Thiem. He could have really challenged Djokovic and Medvedev from all the Grand Slams, I believe. He had a wrist issue throughout the year, which is a problem, but he thinks he's back to full fitness now. I think he's resuming his career on the clay court at the end of January, which would be good to see. I think the only thing that could stand in Dominic Thiem's way of progressing back into the top 10 this year is fitness. Is the wrist fully recovered? How long will it take him to get back up to full speed? Will remain to be seen. But he does have that experience edge now over the likes of Tsitsipas and Zverev and Berrettini in the fact that he's won a Grand Slam. So if he was to get back to his best by the time the clay court swing comes round, Madrid and Paris, then I think Dominic Thiem could improve past those players and certainly get back into the top 5. But I'm going to play it safe and see he finishes 9th, as he had a long injury layoff and a very serious injury at that. But can't wait to see him back, and just hope he comes through 2022 unscathed. So moving on to the 8th seed now, and similarly to Cam Norrie, had a career best 2021, winning 3 titles last year, all on hard courts, which included his maiden Masters title in Miami. And I think that really gave Hurkacz the confidence moving on in his career. It'd be interesting to see how he handles that next year. I think Hurkacz, a player in the past, is a player that's been guilty of a little bit one-dimensional, not quite producing his best in the biggest matches. And I'm not sure he had the mindset that he could beat one of the top players. After winning in Miami, he's going to have all the confidence to go forward and try and get into the top 5 in 2022. He also had a fantastic win against Roger Federer en route to reaching the Wimbledon semi-finals. And I think Hurkacz as well, he's got a huge game that really suits the quick hard court, particularly the US swings, in his favour. Whether Hurkacz can have success on clay, I'm not sure. Potentially he has the tools and variety to defeat the top players. But another strong year beckons for the Pole, and I see him having a consistent year again next year. I wouldn't be surprised if he picked up another 3 or 4 hardcore titles, another Masters title. and challenge particularly at the Australian Open and US Open. So I'm going to predict him to finish 8th at the end of 2022. Now moving on to one of my favourite players in the tour, and I think Carlos Alcaraz is the most excited I've been about a player that I can ever remember as a teenager. When I was growing up, I didn't see Nadal and Federer and Djokovic in depth when they were teenagers. I was a little bit too young. Sort of missed the boat on those three, including Andy Murray and Stan Wawrinka as well. In the past 4 or 5 years, I've seen Jannik Sinner and Stefanos Tsitsipas, Alexander Zverev and Medvedev coming through as teenagers. And although they're all outstanding talents, I think Alcaraz has the potential to be on another planet to all those players. I think his quality under pressure at 18 years old sets him apart. Defeating Stefanos Tsitsipas at the US Open in a deciding set, won his first ATP title in Umag early this year. So I think 2021 was a breakthrough year for Carlos Alcaraz, but just the start of something really special. And 2022 will be even bigger. I think, he's a real crowd pleaser as well. You saw that in New York. They immediately were on his side. It's just the energy, the fighting spirit. He's a little Rafa-like, and I think the crowd are going to get behind him. Rafa always speaks so highly of his young protege, and I think he's going to follow in the footsteps of Rafa and Nadal, get supported all around the world, and be such a special part of our sport for many, many years. So he's someone I'm very excited about, and I'm backing him to break into the top 10 next year. I think one slight issue or potential problem for Alcaraz is will his body hold up. He's a very physical player, yet he's still very young. He's going to have a huge 2022 ahead of him. But whether his body can hold up is another question. But if it does, then he's a problem in any draw and a problem for any player, I think. Moving on now to the 6th seed, and I'm going to go with Matteo Berrettini, who in particular had an excellent grass court season, winning Queens, then going on to reach the Wimbledon final, his first Grand Slam final. Unfortunately for him, he bumped into a rampant Novak Djokovic at the time, who was next to impossible to beat. However, Berrettini did win 2 titles in 2021, despite suffering from a couple of stomach issues. He suffered from one in the Australian Open at the start of the year, a stomach tear, and then struggled at the back end, particularly the ATP finals, which he had to withdraw from, which was a shame. One thing I will say about Berrettini, I think he's potentially one of the most improved players in the tour in the last couple of years. He used to be a little bit one-dimensional with the rocket forehand, but he used to be guilty of overhitting and, trying to finish points too early. But now he's got that patience about his game. He picks the right balls to attack. His defensive backhands come on so much, I think, in the past couple of years. He's got a very effective slice now, particularly at the backhand side, allows him to get neutral and rallies. His defensive movement certainly improving. And when you've got a rocket forehand and a monster first serve like Berrettini has, then you're going to be a massive danger, particularly on the hard court and at Wimbledon. I think there's a big 2022 win coming for Berrettini as long as he stays injury-free, which has been a little bit of a problem for him over the years. Moving on now to the 5th seed, and I'm going to go with Casper Ruud. I think it's fair to say Casper Ruud is a clay court specialist. Won 4 titles, though, on hard court in 2021, and doesn't look out of place on grass either. And I think that's one of the benefits for Ruud, especially in terms of ranking, that you can pretty much turn up at any tournament in the world, and he'll adapt to the conditions. He's got all the variety that you need to perform on any different surface in any different country. And I think he's going to be a real threat in Grand Slams in the next couple of years. I think he's on the verge of really breaking through and challenging the top players. I think the clay courts they're a perfect chance for Casper Ruud to really make his mark on the sport and start winning Masters titles and challenging for majors. With Nadal and Dominic Thiem being out for so long, they've yet to prove their fitness. Ruud could pounce and really challenge in Madrid and Paris next year. You've got Djokovic at the very top there, Tsitsipas at home on clay courts, but Daniil Medvedev isn't. And when you haven't got, Daniil Medvedev at his absolute best, as I've said, Nadal and Thiem have got to prove their fitness, then it's an opening for Ruud, and one I'm sure he'll grasp with both hands. Ruud won 57 matches in 2021, the 3rd most in the ATP Tour, which really exemplifies his fitness, his attitude, and his consistency for the game. So I think that's going to take him so far in the sport. Still very young as well, at 23. So now moving on to the top 4, you can probably guess who the top 4 are going to be. And in 4th, I'm going to go with Stefanos Tsitsipas. Tsitsipas won 2 titles in 2021 in Lyon and Monte Carlo, both clay court events, and also led Djokovic to on the French Open final, but unfortunately couldn't close it out. Djokovic coming back to take what was his second Grand Slam of the title at that time, and I think it was a slightly disappointing year for Tsitsipas. I always feel like he's got so much more to offer. You know, he's 23 years old now, so past that development stage, you need to start really delivering on the biggest stage if you want to enter the top 2 and become a multiple Grand Slam champion. There's always, although he's still young in the sport at 23, there's always that chance that younger players will improve past him, the likes of Alcaraz and Jannik Sinner. There's a lot of young players coming through that are progressing and could potentially surpass Tsitsipas and win a Grand Slam before him, which will be disappointing in his part. This year, he exited Wimbledon in round 1, US Open in round 3, and simply put, it's not good enough. If you want to be top 5 in the world, you ultimately judge on the Grand Slam results. That's where, you know, the biggest points are made, the prize money, and when most fans are watching, that's when you've really got to produce your biggest and best tennis. And unfortunately for him over the years, he hasn't quite been able to do that. I'm a huge fan of Tsitsipas. I think he's great for the game. He's very entertaining, a crowd pleaser. That wonderful backhand's awesome to watch. But I think he needs a big start in 2022, Tsitsipas. If he can get a win over the likes of a Djokovic or a Medvedev at Australian Open, then I think we could really kickstart his 2022. But he needs to get off to a solid start after what was a disappointing 2021, in my opinion. Moving on now to number 3, and I'm going to go with Alexander Zverev. And I think Zverev this year is really going to step above Tsitsipas now after winning the ATP finals, Olympic gold. And although he's yet to win a Grand Slam, he consistently delivers in majors. He's reaching quarterfinals and semi-finals pretty much all the time now, Zverev. And although I have been impressed with him this year in majors, I still feel there's a little something missing for him to win a Grand Slam. If you look back at that 2019 US Open final, he led 2 sets to love against Dominic Thiem. He led Djokovic by a set at both the Australian Open and US Open this year, lost both. And I think what I've put it down to, he's still got that tendency to hit double faults in the big moments. His forehand often goes astray in the big moments. And I think he's a player that does fatigue over the distance and loses ground speed over time. His defence, his natural power, his backhands down the line, his stunning shots, arguably some of the best in the sport. But in the biggest moments of the biggest matches, he does sometimes go into his shell and wait for errors rather than seizing the chance. And it's just something you can't afford to do against the likes of Djokovic and Medvedev and Nadal, who really stepped the game up in those moments. And that's why they're Grand Slam champions, and ultimately he's not yet. Although he's always improving, you do wonder whether, you know, with the returns of Federer and Nadal and Dominic Thiem, which will come later this year, and Andy Murray getting back on the scene, Zverev's had a lot of good opportunities to reach finals and win a major, and you do wonder whether his chances passed with Medvedev winning the US Open, Djokovic still on top. It's interesting to see how it will go, but you know, Zverev's an outstanding player. I do think he's getting better, but whether he's quite got that mental stability to go over the last hurdle will remain to be seen. Moving on now to number 2, I'm going to go with Daniil Medvedev, and you know, just what a tremendous player Daniil Medvedev has transformed into the last 2 years. Just an absolute monster. Brick-like defense, excellent counter-puncher, massive server, and he so deserved to win a major title last year. You know, if he came out of 2021 without a major title to his name, it would have been very, very cruel after the performances and consistency that he displayed. I think 2022 promises huge things, and the fact that he's beat Djokovic now at a Grand Slam, especially in a final, is mentally huge for Medvedev. I think after that 2021 last year Australian Open final, when he got destroyed 3 sets to love off Djokovic, that could have really dented his confidence. He got an opportunity to gain revenge against Djokovic in the US Open final. He took it. He won in 3 sets. He played an outstanding match, didn't show any signs of nerves or any signs of doubt when he got to the winning line. And I think, you know, he really backed himself, but that really could have went either one or two ways. And for him, it went the right way. He got the revenge, and yeah, it was a massive win for him in his career. He was always in the debate with Tsitsipas and Zverev, and now he's no doubt the outright leader. He's gone up to a different level with those 2 players in the past couple of years. One thing I will say about Medvedev, if he does want to become world number one and win multiple Grand Slams and become one of the all-time greats, he's yet to pass the fourth round of Wimbledon. He did exceed expectations, to be fair to him, at the French Open, reaching the final 8. But it'll be interesting to see next year and in years to come if he can adapt to improve his results on all the different surfaces. So moving on now to the world number one, and I'm sure you can all guess who it is. Novak Djokovic. 4 Grand Slam finals, 3 major titles, broke the record for the most weeks ever at world number one in just another truly incredible year in the career of Novak Djokovic, even by his lofty standards. While performing like he is, I can't see him not winning the Australian Open and Wimbledon. I think Nadal is an obvious threat at the French Open, but how he will be after such a long spell out remains to be seen. Same thing for Dominic Thiem. Both need to produce and prove their fitness. I only see Medvedev being able to stop Djokovic unless he picks up an injury or skips the Australian Open. I think although Tsitsipas and Zverev have pushed him close at times at Grand Slams, I think they've had enough opportunities now that one of them would have beat him if they had that mental stability. But I think Djokovic just can go to a level that them two can't live with. He's got that experience, that know-how, that mental stability, that ability to produce his absolute best tennis in the biggest moments that he's done throughout his career. And I'm not sure Tsitsipas and Zverev can quite go to that level with him. Medvedev's shown he can, but nobody else really has yet out of the young players. I'm very confident that he will play in Australia. I'd be amazed if he skipped the chance to win a 10th title in Melbourne and potential opportunity to win a record-breaking 21st major. However, it is only a few weeks away, Australian Open, so it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. But while Djokovic has played like he is in 2021, you can't see past him dominating again next year. So I'm going to predict him to be the world number one in 2022 again. So thanks for watching another video. If you have any opinions of your own of who will break into the top 10 next year, any potential shocks, then do leave them in the comment section below. I will also be bringing out a video like this for the WTA as well, which would be even harder given the depth of the WTA at the moment. If you have enjoyed this video, please do leave a like on it and do subscribe, as there'll be a lot more content coming soon. Thanks for watching.